Hello and welcome to the Philippines. I went for a walk, and the lightning and thunder sounded much closer, much more ominous than it usually does on a cloudy evening. I arrived at this bus stop enclosure, I'll call it, just as the downpour started, and it's actually let up quite a bit right now. It's still raining quite hard, but it was raining. It was raining much harder for 30 to 40 minutes, I would guess, or longer than that. And even though many of us had our umbrellas up, we were still getting wet. The wind blowing, what we weren't getting from the sides, the water draining off the top canopy, hitting the pavement, splashing back up, and drenching us on the lower halves of our bodies. Anyway, everybody's taking cover here. Most people, kids are out there running in the rain, and a lot of people just drenched out there. Once the rain got back to a bit of a sprinkle, anyway, I started walking. I believe this is MJ Cuenco Avenue, headed down towards the downtown area. And right about this time, the streets were getting flooded, and I was going to stop here, and then I decided I was going to proceed and find out, have a little bit of an adventure in this water. And yes, I know the water is dirty, I know there's risks involved, but I decided the adventure was worth it. There was several places along here where traffic was backed up because I think the vehicles, the drivers, weren't sure how deep the water was. There was a couple of cases where vehicles had stalled out. Whether it was from the water or not, I'm not sure. But there was a couple of cases where people were pushing the jeepneys. The passengers had, if they wanted to ride, they had to get out and push. This truck is actually coming from the market, Carbone Market, down in the downtown area of Cebu City, loaded up with produce, and I suspect they're going either up into the mountains to some town up there, or to a town north of town to sell their goods, either at another market or in their stores. Probably with that much, they're probably selling it at another outdoor vegetable market somewhere along the coast of Cebu. The streets are flooded not because there are not drainage drains. It's because all the drains are plugged with trash. And here I came by just as there's several people out on the streets with sticks and rakes trying to find drains and trying to clear the debris out of the drains. This guy just opened up this drain here. And for the most part, I think they're all private citizens out there trying to clear the trash away from the drain grates. But there's so much trash on the street, on the sidewalks. And there he is. He's looking for another drain. And about an hour later, I came back down through this area, and the streets the water was much lower. Some areas that had been flooded were dry, not dry, but they were just wet. There are a number of dangers walking through this type of flooding anywhere. You don't know what's underneath. You don't know what you're going to step into. The next step, especially the sidewalks, often places in Cebu City anyway, there are steps. You step down where there's maybe a driveway or something, or there used to be a driveway, and it's a different level than where the sidewalk is. There are holes, construction holes. There's just damage. There's big holes in the sidewalk. You can step off the sidewalk into the curb, and there might be where there should be a grate across a drain. There might not be any grate there, and you might go in up to your head or over your head. So you'll see a lot of people walking out in the middle of the street. Generally, the middle of the street is the highest point.
Is there a ferry? Is there a ferry here?
No, sir.
Huh?
No, sir. No.
There's river. Isn't there a river ferry? Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
It appears one of the lead vehicles either stalled out or is afraid to wade out into that water. Afraid they're going to stall out. But anyway, there was a backup of traffic here. Some people going around the outside and getting around. And nobody seemed to have answers to what was going on. One person told me it was high tide. So that's awful high tide, I tell you. The land around here, it's really not that high above sea level. So we're kind of protected from other islands for tsunamis and that type of thing, but it obviously is possible, and you can imagine people out here. Usually the drain. I've been down this street different times when it's been raining. I've seen it flooding in one section further down, and there again, it's usually because not because there's not drainage, but because the drains are full of garbage, the drain grates, and so you can just imagine the rumors that get out. Something like this, it's not usual for this much water to be flooding. High tide, it's a strange high tide, or a tsunami, a big storm. This obviously was a big storm with as much rain we had. It was a major storm, definitely. Lots of lightning, lots of really hard thunder, and the people were out. It was a Saturday night. People were out watching the event. The flooding was especially an event that they don't see every week, every month. And we have just I think the first week of June 2018, we entered our wet season, and that usually means that 3, 4, 5 times a week we get rain. It usually rains for 20, 30, 40 minutes, sometimes very hard, and then it lets up. It might sprinkle for a while. It's unusual for it to rain all day long. In this case, it did rain for several hours, lighter rain. And here's a look at one of the canals, rivers, whatever it's called here. Look at all the trash going down here, and that is a major issue here in Cebu City, the trash. And it's difficult to find trash cans to throw things. This is a main road, and traffic is an issue. It's not as bad as many areas of Metro Manila areas for traffic, but Cebu has, with a huge number of cars being purchased in the last few years. I understand they loosened up the financing of cars, and so therefore, and then just the growth of the city. A lot more cars, trucks, vehicles in the city. Water. This guy on the tricycle, little food cart with his tricycle, decided just to wait it out in the middle of the street, it appears. He's on the center lane out there, where it's the least deep, and he's just watching. He's having second thoughts about whether he wants to wade out into that stuff with his tricycle or not. I've seen a couple motorcycles going through the really deeper parts, and they were having a hard time. They were almost stalling out, and just the water. This does give one a new appreciation for the force of nature, and also for the idea that one should be prepared. Have a little fold-up raincoat or something you carry with you if there's any chance of rain. I usually carry an umbrella with me. Sometimes for the sun, sometimes just in case it does rain. Oftentimes I go for a long walk and it doesn't look like rain, but I end up getting hit with a thunder shower, and if there's no place to go indoors, you just hide underneath one of these overhead canopies. You do start understanding you're caught out there in the elements and the wind and the rain, and you get wet, and it gets cold, even though it might be 80, 78, 80, 85 degrees. You're wet and you get cold. The jeepneys were pretty well packed, so getting on a jeepney wasn't much of an issue, an option. Many people tried to stop the jeepneys and they just drove on by. And there were times when none came by at all. Taxis, many people were trying to hail taxis, and the taxis are full. Usually during rush periods, rush hours, and when it rains, taxis, grab cars become very difficult to find one.
Okay, very good.
So keep that in mind as you plan your travels. Anyway, I met a lot of people along the way telling me, be careful, there's a drop-off here, there's a drop-off here, go around this way, and just be aware of your surroundings. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please like, please share the video, subscribe. Safe travels to you all wherever you're at, and we'll see you next time.